Well, good evening and welcome to another scintillating, if abbreviated, episode of Porch Talk. I, of course, am Paul W. Marino, and my compadre here is the one, the only...
Eugene Michaelenko.
Yes, exactly. We're both feeling under the weather. He has a cold. I have a broken wrist and a rib contusion. So we're going to do a short show today. We're only going to do a half hour. Please don't cheer so loud. You're drowning out the TV. Oh,
You're annoying the neighbors.
yes, exactly. So before we get into the meat of the show, let's take a look at the photo behind us, which is...
This week's mystery photo.
It's going to be in front of us. There we go. And the question is, what mill is this? And where is it, or where was it? Now, is that still standing?
Yes, it is.
Oh, all right. So where is this mill? Those are the questions you have until a little before 7:30 to call in with a guess. So, Dave, put it, there we go, thank you.
Back.
And, well, what's new with you besides your cold?
I'm giving a tour tomorrow of the St. Stanislaus Kostka Church.
Oh, nifty.
I've got it all matched out, and there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of art. There's a lot of religious stuff in there, of course, because it's a church. But it has a great history. I'm sure you want to hear about it, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, first, I want to tell you that I was stunned, flabbergasted at the amount of art there. Several years ago, one of my college art teachers wanted to get photos of all the churches in the area, lest they close. Mm-hmm. And we missed one. We were at Notre Dame in North Adams, where almost everything had been moved out. But when we got down to St. Stan's, I stepped in there and, oh, where do I begin?
We now know who the artist was. His name was Vincenzo Mondo. He was an Italian who painted movie theaters for Paramount Pictures. And he painted movie theaters in places like Denver and I'm trying to think of some other places. In Chicago, he has a movie theater. But he also specializes in Polish churches. He he did so many different Polish churches in New England, in Canada, in New York. So his work is still around. Locally, he painted the church, Holy Family in Pittsfield, and he painted some in Holyoke and some in Connecticut. But he was hired. He did all this work in the 50s. I'm not sure who painted this stuff because it first was painted in the 20s. And then he came back in the 50s, and then they painted it again in the 70s. So it's been through three artists who have done work there. Mm-hmm. Most of the Polish people who came to Adams came as teenagers. I don't know how many times I've heard someone say that their grandmother came when she was 18 or 17 or 16 or 15. I know my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, came to this country and lied about her age. And I think she maybe even used someone else's passport, because we don't have a clear record of her entrance into this country. And I think she even lied on one of her censuses too, the 1910 census. Her age doesn't jive. Mm-hmm. But her age does jive when she went to get Social Security. She had to get when you get Social Security, you got to have proof of birth, and she corrected it. But so all these, between 1895 and 1900, something like 2,700 people moved into Adams. That's a lot. And a lot of them were young people. And it was somewhat chaotic. You know how teenagers are. And these were teenagers who had, no adult supervision. And they had cash in their pockets from working in the mills. They always say how hard it was and everybody was poor, but they still had a little bit of paycheck money that they had. And so there was some chaos. If you read the newspapers.
My guess is the priest for St. Stan's must have been a very powerful man.
Very good, you know that, because, well, they didn't get a priest until 1902, so like 6-7 years after they started arriving. And the reason the priest came was because there was a group of mature Polish people who bought a piece of land down on Corrado Street, went to the bishop and said, we need a Polish priest to rail in these young kids. And it took him a while. It took him about 4 years before he actually sent the priest. And priest in Poland, they don't call him reverend, they don't call him father, they call him ksiądz. And ksiądz is the same word as prince. And so they have a little bit more authority, more than just the spiritual authority. They had temporal authority, and the Polish people usually listened to him and obeyed them. That was the important part of obedience. He gets here in 1902, and he saw that property on Corrado Street, which is about a quarter of a mile from the center of town, and said, we're not going to put a church here. We're going to buy something downtown. And they paid $1,100 for it. And he went and bought a piece of property at the corner of Summer and Hoosick Street for $11,000. And now, not only that, he was going to, right at the end of the street of the Berkshire Cotton Manufacturing Company where everybody worked. And he decided they were going to build a church, and it wasn't going to just have one steeple, because all the churches in Adams had one steeple. He was going to build a church with two steeples, twin towers. And that's a rarity around here. I don't know if there's another church around here that has two towers. And he wasn't going to build it out of red brick, like the mills and the schools and all the housing. He was going to build it out of a brick color called Mandarin gold. And the only other buildings in Adams that were yellow, it weren't red brick, were the Adams Library, which was also the memorial to the Civil War. So it was an important building. And the other building that was yellow was the main offices of the Berkshire Cotton Manufacturing Company, which was at that time the second largest employer in Berkshire County. So this man definitely had this architectural statement he was going to make. And he came and organized the people. But within a year and a half, he came here in May. By September of the next year, he had published a book called the Spis Ofiar, which means a list of donations. And he listed everybody's name in it that gave him money. And at the end of it, he says that we now have enough money. We paid off the debt of this $11,000 to build by the property. And we now have enough money in the bank to actually start a foundation come springtime. So I don't know where he got the money from. I'm assuming the Plunkett's had to give him some money, because I know the mill owners, the Plunkett's, definitely helped build churches and encouraged that. But by 1904, they were ready to, they already had a cornerstone laying. And you know about the cornerstone laying disaster, how the floor collapsed and all those people got hurt, which still has the record of the accident with the most injuries in the history of Adams. And then in 1905, they dedicated the church and was open within a matter of so what's that, like three and a half years that it was done, which is quite,
wow.
That's how he had, I don't know how he got them to raise that much money. Not only that, the Polish Church of St. Stan's, they then attracted all the Polish people to come live in that area. So they lived all those streets coming out of Summer Street, up on the hills everywhere. And because of that, there was a second commercial district. Summer Street used to have, butchers and doctors and grocery stores and furniture stores. And they weren't all Polish either. There was German bakers, German butchers. There was French-Canadian supermarkets. There was even Lebanese creamery. The George family had a creamery down there. And of course, Jews had furniture stores and clothing stores as well. So,
Yeah. Well, you know, when you said butcher shops, that did not surprise me because at that time it was common to have a store on every corner.
Right.
So there were grocers and butcher shops all over the place. My brother Ralph could remember a guy who had a shop down the street from us, and it was a one-room, one-story building. And this guy managed to make a living for years in that one dinky little shop.
you could do it then.
Yeah.
And everything, nobody had cars, everybody walked. So every day people came off these hills, walked down Summer Street, walked down Hoosick Street to their jobs, and they had to pass by these stores every day. So that's a steady supply of customers right there. I mean, it wasn't one of those where you hop in the car and drive to Pittsfield, to the mall, or, you had to do your shopping where you could walk to and carry the stuff home. So those were the days, hey? Well,
All right. Thank you for buying this 6-ton bed. Enjoy carrying it home.
they were strong. I think about my grandmother lived at the top of Richmond Street in Adams, and I climbed it the other day just to get the feel of what it's like and she used to do this, 3 times a day. She had to, she was nursing her children. She had like 11 children. So she had to go home at lunchtime to feed her children, to breastfeed her children. So she had to climb the hill at lunchtime and then climb it again at coming home. And so they get good exercise. Didn't need a gym.
Yeah, and about the time that I came along, my mother was going to some of the neighborhood grocers and buying enough groceries for one day.
Oh.
And I remember going to First National down where the Ashland Street high rise is, and riding in the shopping cart. And by that time, she was starting to buy enough for an entire week.
I remember going to the corner store to Horace Ricciardello's on Columbia Street, and Horace had a meat market. He actually bought meat there. You could buy pork chops and luncheon meats and all that stuff there. So you didn't have to go to the supermarket. You could have just easily lived off the corner store. But then the Adams supermarket became so popular, and everybody, liked the idea of buying what you said once a week. You can't beat that. The convenience of not having to keep running to the store every day. So.
Now, I've got a question for you. Why is it that no one in Adams ever opened a Polish restaurant?
That's a good question. I think because I'm sure the restaurant owner didn't want to take the grief of something like, oh, this isn't like the way my wife makes it, or this isn't the way my grandmother made it. It's one of those things that it's better always making it at home. You're never going to get it in a restaurant as good as you have it at home. But
that's a shame, because if they did have one, I'd eat there.
I know what do you call it? Whenever they sell pierogi or gołąbki at one of these fairs and festivals, they always sell out. They don't usually, don't have leftovers. People gobble them up. So, and making pierogi, it's tedious. It's a lot of work. Preparing the dough and rolling it out and pinching those little pierogi all the time, and the fillings too. The cabbage filling takes work. It's a lot of work.
Well, that's why they had large families in those days. Yeah. Lots of little hands that you could force to work for you. Come over here to Grammy. Come over here, you little...
Well, a lot of times these women said nobody else does it except me. You know, that was how my grandmother was. Like, we don't want you to help. You'll screw it up. It's got to be done right the way I want it done. That's the other thing too. So, and there's people.
Who's worse, an Italian grandmother or a Polish grandmother?
They're both the same. I can't. All grandmothers, have their way.
Yeah, when my grandfather died, my Mrs. Mazza approached my father and his brother Frank at the funeral and told them, "You're moving in with us." Not, "Would you like to move in with us?" "You're moving in with us."
She wanted to take care of that.
Yeah.
That is one of the characteristics of grandmothers. They do want to take care of people, and that's, God bless them.
All right, just please don't kill me.
Yeah, just don't steal my money.
Hey, we're not getting any calls about this wonderful mill that, is still standing in Adams. We just want to know what mill it is and where it is. It's that simple. Please give us a call at 664-4408. If you're sick of listening to the two of us droning on, don't change the channel. I said don't change the channel. Give us a call, 664-4408. You still have about 11 minutes.
So, do you have a story for us today?
No, I do not, but I did have a crazy idea today, of doing an interview with the chief of police about a new program they have for reducing crime. And then we go to the police station and catch two people signing up. I'd like a license to rob a bank, please. Oh, yes, all right. And how much money were you planning to steal? Well, we haven't really decided. We want to see how much they've got. All right. Well, in that case, we have to use this form here. Were you planning on shooting anyone while you're in the bank? Well, no, but it happens sometimes, entirely by accident. All right, then we'll use this form here. And you want to be sure to shoot someone who is expendable. Like the bank president. Oh, that's a good idea. I never thought of that. Yeah, so they issue the license for this robbery. Now, were you planning on being captured afterward? Well, we were hoping we could get away with it, but at the very least, we'd like to be able to hide the money before we get caught. Yeah. And then have another guy come in. I need a murder license. I see. And would this be a premeditated act or an act of passion? What's fashion got to do with it? No. Passion, an unplanned. Oh, yeah, that. And how many people were you planning to kill? 50 or so. Yeah. Weapon? Knife.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, would there be a tax? I mean, would the
there'd
city of
be a
North Adams
fee
got to
for
make
this.
some money off this? So they
Oh, yeah.
Did you get a piece of the action?
But you see, that's the thing. If you have to go through all that of making it legal to rob a bank or to mug somebody or to be a mass murderer. Now, mind you, a mass murderer does not mean killing people in a church during Mass. It means killing a lot of people. It's going to make it too much of a bother. Like becoming a saint. I'm not sure I want to become a saint because you have to wait until you die before
Oh, so
they'll start thinking about it.
you don't believe in living saints? Like Mother Teresa was a living saint, wasn't she? Padre Pio was a living saint, wasn't he? Remember him?
Actually, I don't.
Oh. I'm not sure if any miracles were. I think there were miracles attributed to Padre Pio.
Now, is he the one
I,
that
he was the one in
that
Italy.
used to fly around the church?
No, he was one in Italy who people would come to him to confess their sins, and he anyways, I know what your sin is. I think he had that power. I can't think
That
of what else he
reminds
did.
me of my nephew's mind-reading computer. You know, pick a number from 1 to 10, and whatever number you pick, I knew you were going to pick that number.
Let's see, crime. You want to talk about? Yeah, there's too. Crime gets too centralized. You know, everybody makes good news stories, and you got to read all about it. You know, that's the old thing, the old
Yes,
adage
but
of
then,
it. If it bleeds, it leads, and all that stuff. You know, and people always want to hear about violence, and it's you know, they should see more. There should be more news about comedy and things that happened that was funny.
That's true, yeah.
And people can laugh at it. Like people who escape tragedy, you know, like say, you know, someone who almost fell down the stairs, but was able to catch themselves before they fell.
That would have been helpful to me if I'd been able to do it.
Yeah, how did you hurt your arm? How did you hurt?
Well, I own a tenement next door to my house, and I was down in the cellar with my brother, and we were putting in a smoke alarm. And I noticed some things on the other side of the room that had been left there by a previous tenant, and I was interested in going to look. Well, you had to get up onto this little platform, an inch high, for goodness sakes. And no sooner did I have both feet on it, I started tilting to the left, and I swung around to the right to see if there was anything I could grab. Of course, there wasn't. And I went down, bang, onto my left shoulder. Ooh. And there was another of those platforms that caught this part of my face, and I yelled, "Ow!" And my brother came back downstairs, and he held a milk crate for me. I got up on my knees, realized I wasn't getting any further than that. So he produced my cell phone that had come out of my pocket, and I dialed 911. An EMT was on the scene inside of 5 minutes.
Wow.
And the way he got me back on my feet was just magical. He had me sit and get my feet as close to my body as I could. He reached through my armpits, grabbed my forearms, and whoop!
I've done that with my father when he's fallen. Yeah, and luckily enough, it's all pivot and you know, using your body weight to move. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're bigger than my father, so I probably would have a problem moving you. How big is the EMT?
I would say about the same size as me.
Oh, okay. So he could do it.
So once he got me up, we observed a scratch on my wrist. And we went outside, and he took my vitals, called off the ambulance that was right behind him, and I told him I could drive up to the hospital to get that taken care of. They did x-rays, and it didn't look like anything was broken. So I got a Band-Aid on there and an ace bandage. And I was advised to see an orthopedist. And I left. And then I got a call from the hospital. Someone in Pittsfield had looked at my x-rays and said, there is a fracture there in the wrist. So I went back up there and they had this wrist splint waiting for me. Brand new out of the package. This is the only strap that works on it. The others cannot go through the loop and get over there where they connect. So, hey, we have only 2.5 minutes left. So, would you please tell us what you know about the mill?
This is the Adams Brothers Warp Mill, and it was built right after the railroad came to Adams in 1846. There were two guys who came out of Duzenville, which is a suburb of Stockbridge, a neighbor of Stockbridge, and came up here. And I guess they must have been entrepreneurs, and they built this mill right on the railroad track because they knew this was a smart business investment. And at that time, when the railroad came through, there was something like I believe 5 mills that were built in 7 years. All of them are gone except this one. This is the only one left of that economic boom that took place after the railroad came.
So were the Adams brothers really warped?
No, just their product was warped.
Oh.
The Adams brothers were pretty generous. There was a W.T. Adams who gave a huge chunk of money to the Adams Library. We still have the W.T. Adams Fund. And he also established a scholarship, the W.T. Adams Scholarship. And he had a cousin, Myrtle Adams. And Myrtle Adams is the star of the movie Miss Adams of Adams, made in 1917. And with Theo Plunkett, the son of Theo Plunkett was actually the guy who decided he was going to make this movie. And Myrtle was in it, and it's a 17-minute one-reeler of young girl comes to town, and all the boys are crazy about her, and but unfortunately she's taken. Theo comes and gets her. Theo's her fiance and takes her away.
Yeah, and
so
all
the
that
Adams
nonsense of running around. Oh, she's over there.
Oh, and this is behind Pete's Gun Shop in Adams. If anybody knows, on Grove Street off of Route 8. You can't. It's pushed off the side of the road.
Next time we will have a guest. I'll have someone here
really?
from Hoosick River Revival.
Oh, good. Yeah, she'll come. We'll talk about the Hoosick River. Good.
Yes. And so we have about 15 seconds remaining. Thank you for watching. Yes, both of you. Thank you, you guys, for being here. Thank you, Dave, for being here and tolerating us. We will see you on the first Friday in December.